Welcome to Glow Social Club, the space where powerhouse women come to reclaim their health, their clarity, and their leadership. I'm Jazmine Corona, functional nutritional practitioner and founder of Organically Glow and Glow Social Club. Around here, we don't do one-size-fits-all advice. We translate symptoms into strategy and build the kind of structure that actually sustains you. If you are ready to lead your health, your work, and your life with clarity, confidence, and conviction, you are in the right place. Let's begin. If you have been to the doctors because you are experiencing irregular cycles, missing cycles, hot flashes, mood swings, joint pain, sleep issues, maybe even anxiety, depression, and you have been dismissed, you have been told that this is normal for your age. This is just what happens when you're a woman. You are just experiencing stress. This is just PMS. What we're going to talk about today is really focusing on the different hormonal shifts that we go through as women in our lifetime. So we're starting off today with the pre-menopause state. This is basically the transitional period between a woman's regular menstrual cycle and menopause. So this does typically last 4 years, and it lasts up until the final menstrual period, which then that enters you into menopause. There's also a point in between this. So we have premenopause, we have something now called perimenopause, and then we have menopause, and then we have postmenopause. So there are different shifts that we go through as women, and I truly believe education is power, and the way for us to actually support our body, heal our bodies, understand our bodies, use our bodies as our power. Using our hormones as our superpower is really understanding what's going on with these different transitions. So with premenopause, this is what we're going to chat about today. And if when I first started this episode, you resonated with any of those symptoms you are experiencing right now, these are not normal symptoms. Okay, they are just very common in our day-to-day life just because we are exposed to so much more nowadays. And so how can we help our bodies heal? How can we regulate our menstrual cycles? How can we minimize these symptoms that come with this premenopausal state? I'm going to go through that today with you guys. So starting off, let's chat a little bit about premenopause and maybe your current experience right now. So usually the premenopause state, you are in your early 20s all the way up to probably around your late 30s. You are having a regular menstrual cycle, but maybe you're experiencing irregular menstrual cycles, right? Maybe you're experiencing fatigue, mood swings, and you started learning more about your hormones and the different cycles that we go through when it comes to our menstrual cycle, right? I have gone through this before in another episode where I broke down the 4 phases of our cycles. And when we're experiencing different symptoms during different phases, it can actually really give us information on what's going on with our hormones. Do we have low progesterone related back to high estrogen? Do we have higher androgens, which is driving inflammation, right? So really understanding what is happening with our body can be connected back to our symptoms, right? Our symptoms are signals. They are honestly how our body is communicating to us. So really understanding and learning what these symptoms are trying to tell you is really where we step into our power as women. So if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, the irregular cycles, the hot flashes, night sweat, vaginal dryness, mood swings, anxiety, depression, feeling super irritable, joint pain, sleep issues, maybe even acne, maybe breast tenderness around a certain phase of your cycle. These are symptoms, right? So we have to really understand, okay, like what's happening? So during the premenopausal state, our ovaries are gradually producing less estrogen and progesterone. So as these hormonal declines start to happen, our body can experience these these symptoms, all of these symptoms. And yeah, there's really no specific diagnostic test for premenopause. And this is why when you go to your doctors, you're just so easily dismissed as this is just PMS. This is just normal. This is just stress. And there isn't really a specific treatment. Like the only treatment that they offer is if you're having very painful periods, ibuprofen. If you're experiencing all these different symptoms, irregular periods, missing periods, heavy bleeding, what do? Birth control. So there's really very limited resources and options when it comes to your medical doctor and your medical team when it comes to your symptoms related back to your hormones, okay? And I want to say this because I always say this, but you have so much more power than you think. There's so much more that you can do. There's so many different options out there where you can actually support your body through your nutrition, through your lifestyle, through different supplementation. And really the first step is understanding what is actually going on with your hormones. What are your symptoms trying to communicate to you? So let's just jump into that. We're going to chat a little bit more about symptoms and how we can actually start decoding them. So like I said, these symptoms are trying to communicate to you. And what I like to do when it comes to any type of symptom related back to your hormones is find the root cause. I always say there's never just one root cause, and hormones are not a root cause. What do I mean by this? So when I say hormones are not a root cause, I mean, so let's bring in an example. So most women who come to me, they have a hormonal imbalance going on, right? They have worked with their doctors, they have worked with functional health providers, holistic health providers, and they all tell them like, oh yeah, you have an estrogen problem. Like you have too much estrogen or you have too little progesterone. Sometimes you can have both. And so they just automatically just address the estrogen or the progesterone with something called DIM, or they even just provide progesterone, or they even just provide estrogen, right? So there are different like bioidentical hormone therapies that are really popular right now. So that is like their first option. Let's just supplement with hormones. Yes, it can have very quick results, right? Your symptoms improve because you're basically adding what you don't have. So if you have low progesterone, you give progesterone, your progesterone levels are higher, right? And then the symptoms go away. However, if we don't actually address the real reason the progesterone is low, which can be stress, thyroid issues, toxins, blocking the progesterone production, what happens is our body just gets so used to the hormone therapy or the supplementation once we come off of it, because again, these shouldn't be long-term unless you're in the menopausal state, right? Premenopause is different. If you come off of these supplements that are supporting your progesterone levels, guess what happens? Your progesterone just goes back down to low because you never really addressed the real root cause issue. So here are some of the most common root causes that I see in my practice when I'm working with women who have any of these premenopause symptoms. Number one, of course, is I always look at chronic stress, okay, the nervous system. Are we stuck in a fight, flight, or freeze response? When we are experiencing chronic stress, right? Chronic stress, like I always say, it's either from emotional things or it can also be from physical things. So emotional, this can be more so like work stress, financial stress, relationship stress, or we can also have these physical stressors, which are like the toxins that we're being exposed to, or maybe it's the food we're eating, or maybe we literally got into a car accident and that has triggered our stress to go haywire. So what happens when we're under chronic stress for a long period of time is, yes, our cortisol gets messed up, right? We have very high cortisol and then eventually it just drops. We have no more cortisol. So when we're in like this fight or flight or freeze response and our cortisol is now going haywire, cortisol blocks progesterone. Okay. So then our progesterone levels are just so low. especially if you're under chronic stress for a long period of time, right? Because that's what chronic stress is. It's stress over a long period of time. We have very high cortisol levels, but then what happens is our cortisol is just like, the adrenals are like, hey, I cannot pump out any more cortisol. So we need to get it from somewhere. We need to get cortisol from somewhere. How can we turn something into cortisol in our body? Because our bodies are so smart. They specifically use your progesterone to convert into cortisol. So then what happens? You got low progesterone, you have your cortisol is trying to rebalance itself. And that is probably the top root cause that I see. Again, there's never just one root cause when it comes to hormonal imbalances. Another one that I also see is usually undernourishment or just vitamin and mineral depletion. This can be due to our poor diet, right? So even if you're eating healthy, our food nowadays just doesn't have the nutrients that it needs. Like our soil is completely depleted. I think they said don't quote me on this, but I think they said by 2030 or 2050, like we're going to have completely like zero nutrients in our soil. Like that's scary. That means the food that we're growing in that soil is going to have no nutrients. So we're just going to be eating nothing, right? So the mineral depletion, the nutrient depletion, and the undernourishment, okay? So we have the nutrient depletion. So if you are eating healthy, which most of the women I work with, they have a clean diet, they're eating organic, they're eating their protein, they're doing everything right. So I know that's not them, right? But there's also something called undernourishment. So maybe you're on a restrictive diet and you aren't getting enough protein. So now you're undernourished. When you're undernourished, your hormones are like the last thing that your body wants to worry about. You are stuck in a chronic fight or flight response. So there's no reason for you to even have libido. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have no desire, no sex drive. You're not going to be able to bring a child into this world because that is not the main priority right now. Sometimes you even start losing your hair because your body's so undernourished that it's using what it's getting for vital functions in the body. Bringing a child into this world is not something that's going to make you survive, right? Like if we're talking biologically with our physiology, okay? So when you're undernourished, your body's just going to take what it needs in order to survive, in order to live. So that's another root cause factor that we like to look at is nutrient depletion and undernourishment. Are you eating enough? Next is blood sugar dysregulation. So this is a really big one, huge one. Skipping meals, over caffeinating. Again, this is kind of tying into the undernourishment. Blood sugar dysregulation too has been connected back to PCOS, right? Because PCOS there is a hormonal component, but again, hormones are not a root cause. Why are the hormones going haywire? Why is this happening in the body? Blood sugar dysregulation. So again, like all of the body is so connected. So all of these root causes connect with one another. So chronic stress, when we experience chronic stress, again, cortisol increases. When cortisol increases, blood sugar gets disrupted. We're going to increase our glucose because that's our body's natural response. It's a protective mechanism. On top of that, in order to the body to regulate its blood sugar, it pumps out insulin, keeps pumping it out. And then eventually what happens is insulin becomes dysregulated. Insulin resistance. Okay, that's where insulin resistance comes in, where you're pumping out so much insulin that now sometimes it overcorrects the glucose. So then we start experiencing irritability, mood swings, painful periods, basically like PCOS symptoms. So if you look up PCOS symptoms, that can be related back to blood sugar dysregulation. We also see gut dysfunction. Okay, this is the next one. This is more so these are root causes and dysfunction in the body. Gut dysfunction can be an overgrowth in the gut. Candida specifically, or any type of fungal infection, will naturally increase estrogen. When we have too much estrogen, now we're leaning more towards estrogen dominant. That can actually drive our progesterone down. We have poor detoxification. So now estrogen just keeps increasing in the body. And then what happens? We have very painful periods. We have breast tenderness, especially during our luteal phase. We may even have trouble losing weight, water retention, feeling super puffy, super inflamed, constipation. We really have to address these overgrowths or the dysbiosis in the gut. Next, we see a toxin burden. So like I said, there's a lot of endocrine disruptors that we're being exposed to, right? It's in our personal care products, it's in our makeup, it's in the air we're breathing, it's in the food we're eating. Like toxins are everywhere. So we cannot avoid toxins 100%. What we can do is reduce our overall burden. And we can also increase our own body's natural detoxification system. What happens when we're exposed to so many different toxins, the heavy metals, the chemicals? It puts a burden on our liver. Our liver is responsible for removing excess hormones like estrogen out of the body. So once our liver's burdened, that means everything's just getting backed up. Our estrogen is not metabolizing out of our body. Estrogen keeps building up. So then again, we see all these different hormonal imbalances going on. Of course, we always have to talk about sleep because sleep's a big one too. Scrolling on your phone at nighttime, if your nervous system's just stuck in that fight or flight response, that's going to really trigger lots of inflammation in the body that can drive hormonal imbalances too. And like I said, all of these different dysfunction and root cause factors can be basically playing on one another, right? So the only way to actually understand what your body specifically requires to heal, to balance hormones, and to get rid of all of these premenopausal symptoms is testing. Functional lab testing is going to take out all this guesswork, right? Because you hear on TikTok, oh, I have a cortisol issue. Or maybe you hear, oh, I have a blood sugar issue. Well, everything's pretty much connected. So if we actually know what your body specifically requires to heal, then we will take out all the guesswork and we'll know exactly what to do on a day-to-day basis to regulate our hormones. So this is why I love our complete root cause panel specifically, because this is looking not just at our hormones, but it's looking at these deeper rooted issues, right? Like the toxin burden, the chronic stress, the mineral depletion, vitamin depletion, the undernourishment, blood sugar dysregulation, the gut, the digestion. We're looking at all these different factors on our complete root cause panel. And then once we have those answers, that's when we can start creating a very personalized plan for you. So we take out all the guesswork, we take out all the overwhelm, and you know what your body requires to heal. So this was actually a very familiar story with a lot of my clients, but a specific client that I want to go through is, I'm not going to say her name. I was about to say her name. I was like, wait, hold on, not her name. But she is a 31-year-old female, and she came to me with a long list of symptoms, and she had very specific health goals, and they were all related back to hormones. So let me just grab my notebook really quick and I can go through those. Okay, so one of her main goals was to regulate her menstrual cycle. And that's a lot of women, right? Especially when you're around the 30-year-old range. So I would say 25 to about like 35 years old. Your goal is usually to regulate your menstrual cycles. Why? Because you want to start planning for a family, for fertility, right? So you have that in the back of your head, like, wow, like if I don't have regular menstrual cycles, what's going to happen when I want to start planning for a child? So these are like the things that you start thinking about when you get a little bit older, which is normal, right? It's very normal. So some of the symptoms that brought her in, she was experiencing bloating, excessive bloating after eating everything she ate. Irregular period, so she was having a period every couple months. Low energy, fatigue, to the point where she would have to take naps in the middle of the day just to get through her day. She was having trouble losing weight, and she was doing everything right, which we'll talk about. She was dealing with like random skin rashes, excessive snoring, and she also one of her other goals was to regulate her thyroid. So she was diagnosed with hypothyroidism about 2 years ago before working together. She was also diagnosed with irregular periods, so her doctor prescribed birth control to regulate her cycle, and then also she has been on levothyroxine, which is a thyroid medication to support her thyroid. Even with those medications, she still wasn't experiencing a regular period. She also was still showing signs of hypothyroidism on her lab work, which I had recommended her to go back to her doctor because maybe she needed an increase in her thyroid medication. She came back to me and she was like, hey, my doctor said like it's fine, like I don't need to do anything else for it. So I was like, okay, like I just wanted second opinion, you know, like this is what I like to bring up just in case if they need to change your dosage. But yeah, of course, they said no, it's fine. Let me guess, you became a practitioner to help people heal, but somewhere between the passion and the protocols, your business stopped feeling like something that could hold you. If that's you, the Leadership Lab inside Glow Social Club was built with you in mind. This is not just a course, it's a strategic mentorship container where your root cause wisdom meets the structure your business has been craving. Whether you're ready to learn the method, our Glow Beyond protocol, live the method with systems and mentorship, or lead the method through high-level refinement, there's a level that meets your depth and matches your season. If you're tired of winging it and ready to lead your method, your message, and your model with clarity and conviction, the Leadership Lab is your next step. DM me leader on Instagram or visit organicallyglow.com/glowsocialclub to join us. So they did run conventional labs. So they ran basic blood lab markers and they said everything looks fine, everything looks normal. So really not much for us to do. You can come back in a couple months, we'll rerun labs and see where you're at. What we found, okay, this is the most important piece because like I said, her doctor said her thyroid was fine. Like keep taking your dosage, everything's good. Keep taking your medication to regulate your cycles. Your labs look fine, not much to do, but my client was still experiencing all those symptoms, right? Shouldn't we focus on the patient or the person that's in front of us instead of, oh, your labs look good. Just keep taking the prescriptions, right? But if someone's coming to me and they're still experiencing all these different symptoms, even when taking thyroid medication, even when taking their birth control, isn't there something that we should do to help them feel better? Shouldn't we be addressing the person that's experiencing these symptoms? Okay. Yes, right? Yeah, that would be like common sense. You would think. So this is what we found when we were looking at her lab work from a functional perspective. Okay. We did not run our complete root cause panel yet because she did get a lot of lab work done prior with her doctor. There were some biomarkers that were missing, so I wouldn't say this was like a complete panel, but we had enough information that we can go off of. Plus, we do different assessments that help kind of like close those gaps with lab work. So basically, when I was looking at her lab work from a functional perspective and also all of her assessments, this is what we found. Number one was chronic stress, okay? She was in a state of adrenal hypofunction. So her adrenals are responsible for when you're in a stressful event, right? Adrenals are there to help you respond to this stressful event. Again, like I said, when you are chronically stressed, so you're in a state of stress for a long period of time, your brain is constantly tapping onto the adrenals, telling them like, hey, release cortisol, release cortisol, release cortisol, epinephrine, all these different stress hormones, right? So we can survive. But it gets to a point where if you're chronically stressed, your adrenals will not release enough cortisol to keep you going. This is also heavily connected back to her fatigue that she was experiencing. When it comes to adrenal hypofunction too, I also like to take into account the mitochondria. So these are the powerhouses of our cells, right? So this is what gives all of our cells in our body energy to actually work properly. So if we have our mitochondria not functioning how they're supposed to, they're not creating ATP, that means we are basically losing a lot of our function in every organ in our body. So when that happens, that's basically leading to the adrenal hypofunction because we don't have enough energy for the adrenals to work properly. So like I said, everything in the body is completely connected. If our cells do not have enough energy to work properly, then our organs are not going to have enough energy to work properly. We also seen cellular dehydration. So she was drinking about 60 to 80 ounces of water a day. She was working out a lot, so she knew it was important to drink water, but she was still depleted on a cellular level. So her body wasn't actually absorbing the water. She was just peeing it out all the time. So that was another thing I seen. So usually with cellular dehydration, what I look at is the electrolytes. So we're looking at your electrolytes on the blood work panel. We also seen thyroid dysfunction, which I wasn't surprised. Yes, you're on thyroid medication, but you're still experiencing all the symptoms related back to thyroid dysfunction. So again, the bloating, the irregular periods, low energy, not losing weight, even when you're working out. That's all going to be related back to the thyroid. The thyroid is so important. If our thyroid is not working properly, a lot of our organs aren't going to work properly either. Again, we want to look for root causes. Why is the thyroid dysfunctioning, right? What is causing the thyroid to be dysfunctional? What is causing the chronic stress on the body? Because there's always deeper root causes. We also seen lots of digestion and liver support that we needed that kept popping up. Again, digestion is going to be related back to the bloating. It's going to be related back to not losing weight, right? When there's any type of dysbiosis or gut imbalance, overgrowths of different fungal infections, that's going to impact our ability to, number one, detox properly, number two, break down our food properly, so then now we're not absorbing the nutrients from our food. And then the liver is so important for so many different functions of the body, not just detoxification, but for digestion too. We also seen lots of signs pointing to early signs of insulin resistance, so blood sugar dysregulation. Again, insulin resistance is something that I see very, very commonly when it comes to irregular periods or any type of period problems. When it comes to root causes now, so with root causes, what we also found was parasites. So she saw lots of signs and symptoms related back to parasites. That was also confirmed on some lab work, which I see usually high basophils, high eosinophils, and then the iron panel is just kind of all over the place. And then we also seen lots of signs and symptoms pointing back to a fungal overgrowth in the gut. Fungal overgrowths will usually trigger the ability to not lose weight. We also hold on, so we're like more water retention, so we're holding on to more water. So sometimes when you're not able to lose weight, it might just be water retention that you're holding on to, okay, due to this fungal overgrowth in the gut. And then usually when there's fungal overgrowth, there's always a specific toxin, environmental toxin, heavy metals. So she had lots of signs and symptoms pointing back to heavy metals. Heavy metals will basically be connected back to all of these symptoms, especially hormones and the thyroid. Heavy metals love to really impact the thyroid. That is something that I see really, really commonly. So what did we do once we found out all this, right? This is a lot of information. Like she was sitting there like, oh my gosh, like I have never been told any of this at all. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty common. So the protocol that we did. So number one, we always want to focus on setting a solid foundation for her. So again, our foundations are going to be our nervous system. It's going to be cellular hydration. It's going to be digestion and gut health, and then blood sugar regulation. So that is basically what we focus in on the first protocol. And then we're also prepping the body for active detoxification. So when it comes to active detoxification, we're actually using different herbs to get these toxins and these parasites out of the body. So these herbs are very powerful, right? They work like antibiotics is how I like to explain it. Antibiotics, what they do is they kill the bad stuff. They kill the bad bacteria, right? But they also kill the good bacteria. So with herbs, they actually don't kill the good bacteria that we need. Herbs are also antimicrobial. So they're not just going after bacteria like antibiotics. They're going after fungal issues. They're going after viruses. They're going after parasites, right? They're going after everything. And so that's really important, right? We have to prep the body so when we do start that detoxification phase, these things that we're trying to get rid of actually have a way to exit the body, right? The way toxins exit the body are number one, through our bowel movements, through sweating, and then we also release them through urine, right? So those are basically our ways of like getting rid of any type of waste and toxins out the body. Those are our elimination pathways. So that's the first step that we did, right? So that was number one protocol, foundations, and we're just prepping the body, making sure her organ systems are actually working how they're supposed to. Also bringing in lifestyle strategies and nutrition support too where it was needed. The second protocol really focused on detoxification. So once we prep the body, now you're good to go with the foundation or with the actual detoxification process. So here's what happened, okay? After 3 protocols, which is about 3 to 4 months of working together, she has dropped 10 pounds. Her period has returned back to a normal cycle. So she has had a normal, regular cycle for about 3 months. Okay, that's insane. I would say for about like the last 2 to 3 months, she's been having a period every month, and she actually decided to get off Provera. So she made that decision on her own. After the first month, she was like, I'm going to get off of it. I was like, if that's what you want to do, definitely check in with your doctor, right? She also eliminated the bloating. Her snoring is gone. She has energy to the point where she doesn't need a nap in the middle of the day just to get through her day. Okay. These are basically all of her top symptoms were addressed after just 3 protocols. Okay. She has been on the thyroid medication for 2 years. She has been on the Provera for probably a year or 2 before working together. And she was still experiencing all those symptoms after just 3 protocols of working together, addressing the root causes, addressing the dysfunction, providing her body what it requires to heal. Those were her results. This is the power of root cause care. This is the power of actually a bio-individual approach. That is what makes the difference. We're not just slapping a pill, throwing a pill at you saying, take this forever. We don't really care about your symptoms. We don't really care what's really going on internally. Just, this is our only solution, so take it. No, we go deeper, okay? We actually want you to heal. We want you to walk away as a new woman. So if you are experiencing some type of premenopausal symptom, you're just not feeling right in your body, you're having mood swings, you're experiencing acne, painful periods, fatigue, you deserve answers, and there are answers out there. You can absolutely change your life, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be confusing. Start with functional lab testing, okay? That is going to give you so much information. You're going to finally know what your body has been trying to communicate to you. So before we jump off and end this podcast, I want to actually give you some actionable steps on how to support your hormones in this phase. You don't have to follow all of these. Just take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Okay. So there's something called cycle syncing. So what I really like to focus in on is cycle syncing when starting out. This is before functional lab testing. You don't have to be super extreme with it, but really getting like an idea of when you have symptoms, understanding number one, where am I at in my cycle? Is this normal for me to be feeling? Right? Is this impacting my day-to-day life? If it is, it's not normal. We have to start addressing it right now. But cycle syncing does give you kind of like an idea of like, okay, I'm feeling this way. I'm in this phase of my cycle. Okay, I'm okay. This is what I can do to support my body. These are some small lifestyle shifts that I can implement to help my body reduce the inflammation, to kind of reset, right? So I have a whole cycle syncing episode if you guys want to listen to that, and I provide different things you can do for different phases of your cycle. Next is blood sugar regulation. So some things to help with blood sugar regulation: walking after meals, lifting weights, eating protein forward meals. for your nervous system to get your body out of that fight, flight, or freeze response. Breath work, focusing on your sleep schedule, setting boundaries, praying, doing anything that brings you joy. That is a question I ask my clients. What brings you joy? Okay, do that 5 to 10 minutes a day. For gut support, it really depends on what's going on in the gut, but some general things that I like to support when it comes to hormones is obviously getting your digestive system working properly. So you can do digestive bitters. This can be ginger. This can be, what is it called? Thinking of the greens that are super bitter. And it's not coming to me. Oh my gosh, what are those called? I can't remember the name of those. That's really going to drive me nuts. Anyways, so digestive bitters, really important to implement before meals just to kind of help kickstart your digestive system. Apple cider vinegar is good for that. If you are more leaning towards like acid reflux, aloe vera juice is great for that. Again, protein is going to be helpful. Honestly, when it comes to gut health support, diversity in your diet is huge. For more like minerals, cellular hydration, we can actually add back a pinch of sea salt to your water. You can do trace minerals. You can do electrolytes. They have so many electrolyte powders on the market nowadays. And then lastly, test, don't guess. If you are experiencing all of these symptoms or even some of these symptoms and you're just feeling off in your body and you're like, I have tried everything. I have tried the diets. I have tried the supplementation. I have tried lifestyle changes, and you're still experiencing these symptoms, functional lab testing to get clarity on what your body specifically is asking for. I like to run the complete root cause panel first. You guys can find that on my website. And also when it comes to hormones specifically, a Dutch test, a Dutch complete. So you can actually order both of those on my website. So you can also buy the complete root cause panel package, and then you can add on the Dutch complete. So then you get 2 functional lab tests, and then you also get a breakdown of the results and a personalized protocol and access to our wellness community where you can get support there. And of course, listening to your body and tracking symptoms is going to be huge. So if you're sitting here like, I actually don't know if I experience any symptoms during my period, maybe it's time to reconnect with your body. So those are just some of the different supports that you can do right now that are simple. You don't have to do all of these. Pick one that aligns with you best and start implementing it today. Lastly, before I jump off, premenopause is real. So if you have any early signs of imbalances that are just happening, right? You have the irregular periods, you have missing periods, maybe fertility struggles, maybe you're experiencing the bloating, mood swings, anything like that. These are signals your body is trying to communicate to you. They are not random. They are really like your guide. This is your blueprint. This is what's going on, and this is how we can support it. You do deserve answers, support, and clarity. And if you are ready for that, if you are ready to walk away as a new woman who actually understands her body, who understands her hormones, who is prepping for conceiving, for fertility, for bringing a child into this world, and you're experiencing these symptoms, now is your time to start supporting your body. So in the next 3 months, you can conceive. You can have a healthy pregnancy. So if you're ready, you guys can order our one-time functional lab testing packages just to start with functional lab testing and a personalized protocol. If you are looking for high-level one-on-one support where you are going to walk side by side with me throughout the health journey, throughout the healing journey, becoming the version of you who is the wealthiest person of your life. And I mean like wellness. Make sure you guys book a call, and I would love to chat with you. And thank you so much for listening to this. If you guys have any questions, if this resonated with you, if you guys learned something from this and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew this information. And if you know someone who you know may need this information and this knowledge, send this episode to them. Thank you so much again for listening to this episode. If you guys have questions, you guys can DM me on Instagram at organicallyglow. You don't need more wellness advice. What you're looking for are answers. If you're tired of wondering why you feel off, my one-time functional lab testing packages are your fast track to clarity. This is root cause insight without the long-term commitment. You'll get functional labs, a detailed breakdown of what's really going on, and a short-term protocol designed to bring immediate relief. It's not a transformation, it's a turning point. A way to stop guessing, start strategizing, and take grounded action right now. If you are craving clarity without the overwhelm, head to organicallyglow.com and book your testing package today. Because your symptoms aren't random, they are readable, and I'll help you decode them. If today's conversation shifted something inside of you, if it brought you clarity, relief, or a new way to see your health as a leadership tool, I'd love for you to share this with another powerhouse woman in your world. And remember, symptoms aren't the problem, they are the signal. When you start translating them, you stop surviving and you start leading with clarity. I'll see you next time inside Glow Social Hour.